Nice to see you again on my channel. Let's dive into the new story and try to resolve it together in the comments below after watching this video. Get comfortable and let's begin. First story. I had to forgive her because I told her I would. This was soon after we married and before our 2 children. Stacy confided that her previous boyfriends had always accused her of cheating. I said I don't know what the big deal was as long as you stayed together. Though she said she'd never do it, it was shortly after our second child that we had an IUD placed to avoid further pregnancies. I was caught by surprise, though. I knew other guys found her attractive. There was no denying that. She was a brunette with bedroom hazel eyes and a well-endowed bosom that stood out on her medium frame. They were an eye-catcher, and now she had 2 babes, and feeding, they were well engorged. She would take her pump to work with her and milk herself at breaks and lunch. I had forgotten about that conversation. She had just returned to work, and maybe 2 months since returning that I came across a pair of her well-used panties. I became enthralled and somewhat upset by this discovery. However, I didn't take them to my wife and use them for my pleasure. I would find her used panties 2 to 3 times a week for about 2 weeks. She talked about different guys at work, but nothing that led me to suspect anyone in particular. Now I knew someone was having sex with her and dropping their load inside. It was at this point I began to feel small and somewhat weak in knowing some guy was taking advantage of me. Stacy wasn't satisfied sexually and needed another man. It was about 2 weeks afterward that I got lucky and found a letter from a coworker in her glove box. His name was Mike, and he said how much he liked being with her, how pretty she was, and how good in bed she was. But his letter was a goodbye. He said he wanted to keep their relationship quiet because he wanted to keep his reputation. He said he was asked by other coworkers if he was seeing Stacy too. He said rumors were going around that Stacy was with different guys in the office and was asked if he was one of them. I was floored. Not just one guy, but a few? Mike's letter not only confirmed he was sleeping with my wife, but other guys were also. I never imagined that my wife would be the office slut. I wanted to know everything. It was like reading a fantasy. How big were the men's cocks? Did she suck their cocks? Were they bigger than me? More satisfying? Where did she do it? All this raced through my head as I went to bring it to her attention. When I opened the door, holding the letter, she immediately went defensive. "It's all lies," she said. I could only laugh at the statement. I said which, him or the others? "None of it is true," she said, realizing I wasn't as mad as expected. I obviously recalled our prior conversation. She would finally admit there were 4 guys she was sleeping with. She said she felt pressured as they would always tease about her tits and wanting them and play with them and help with her pumping. She admitted it made her feel sexy and attractive from the attention. The 4 were Mike, Dennis, Tony, and Brian. She said the only one she was attracted to was Mike. She was with him twice a week. He would go shopping with her after work, 10 p.m. She would use this excuse. They would first go back to his place and fuck first. Tony and Brian were mainly her lunch guys. They wanted to go to lunch and park and watch her pump her tits. She said they wanted her to get naked and pump her breasts. But she'd only let them watch and fondle her tits. She would blow them only once or twice before the letter. Dennis was the only one she said came over to our place. She told me while she was pregnant that he asked her to go to lunch on their days off. I said he knows you're married, right? She said, of course, he does, but then added that didn't stop him before, as he had been with a married woman. Then she said, but not with her, and she didn't find him attractive. He started calling and checking up on her after our second child and was soon coming over before she went back to work. She had sex with him the most. She thought it was 10 to 15 times. She cried while telling me all this, and she never returned to her job. She said people were jealous and started these rumors. I knew she was only doing so because she got caught. I never let her know how I knew before the letters. I knew each guy she talked about from work that she was possibly sleeping with them. I would continue to find used panties. The second story. Hello, my name is John. I'm a 32-year-old man who has been married to my wife for about 5 years. We have a son together named Joey, who is just a few months old. My wife and I struggled for a few years after getting married before we were able to conceive. We are Christians, and our marriage is meant to be built on truth, love, integrity, and the love of God. We are both Christians and have been since we were kids. We met in church. Our marriage has not always been easy, but we have tried to weather the storms. Before I found out about my wife's unfaithfulness, we had bliss in our home. We did everything together, and our sex life was great. I feel like I did the best I could to make her happy in bed and never wanted to desire another man. Oh, I was wrong. I would come to find out that people are not always who they seem to be or claim to be. Life was perfect. Then one lazy Saturday evening, my wife and I were chatting when she dropped her phone on the bed to go over to Beth. She didn't suspect that moment would change our lives forever. As she was bathing, a text came up on her phone. Initially, I ignored it and just looked away because I don't like snitching or looking into other people's phones, but something made me turn around just in time, and I saw at the top of her phone where notifications usually are, someone, probably a man, sent the words, "I can't wait to see you tonight. I've been hard all day." I could not believe what I had just read in my conservative wife's phone. What does this person mean by tonight? Has she been going out to see other people other than the people she told me she was going to see? I had so many questions. Why is this man sending her texts about his hardness? To God, I was praying he meant something else, like him falling through hard times and needing her guidance and wisdom. I was hoping it was just a guy who needed guidance and wisdom because life had become so hard for him that he needed someone to pray for him. That was what I hoped, and for that was what I thought about. I didn't want to think about any other thing apart from that. The thought of any other thing being true caught me deep like a knife, and I did my best to hide my sorrow. I made up my mind that I was going to pretend as much as possible so she didn't know I knew something was up or something was wrong. I heard the water get turned off, and then I heard the footsteps walking down to the bedroom. As she came in, I put on the biggest smile I could muster and told her now she was clean and moist and ready for me this night. She caught me the nastiest look I had ever seen from her and complained about why I used the word moist to describe her just having a shower routine. She acted like it made her feel dirty and sexually impure. I held my peace and skilled again at her. She started to get ready. I stared at her and wondered if I should ask about the message I saw on her phone or if I should just ask her where she was going to. I decided to ask her about the latter. "Where are you heading?" I said. "Oh," she answered, "I forgot to tell you. I'll be going out this evening with my friends." "Your friends?" I said. "Yes," she said to me, half-turned. "You never even implied throughout the day that you will be going out this evening with your friends. I thought we were supposed to spend the night together, just as we used to." "I'm sorry, babe. It was last minute," she said. "Cynthia just got promoted at a place of work, and she wonders about it this evening very late. She begged us not to be offended and asked us if we just could go get a few drinks to celebrate. I couldn't say no. As you know, Cynthia is my very good childhood friend." I stared at her in bewilderment. I was left bamboozled. Even without me investigating further, it seemed as if all my nightmare about this woman that had occurred this night was so true. I couldn't believe it. I was tempted to call her friend Cynthia, who was also my own family friend, to confirm if truly she had a promotion and my wife had to be with her and all the other friends, or my wife had just turned into a pathological liar. My wife picked up a sexy red dress and then put on sexy red lipstick. She brushed her hair very well and sprayed on her most expensive perfume. I just kept staring at her as she was leaving. I made up my mind that by tomorrow morning, I was going to find a way to hack her phone and read everything she seems to be hiding from me. I started looking up the best phone hacker in town. I remembered I had an account on the dark web and went there. Within a few minutes, I had met somebody who was willing to hack her phone for me for a few $1,000s. Honestly, I had worked with this guy before. I used him to hack my ex-girlfriend's phone when I was also suspicious that she was cheating on me. What I saw confirmed my suspicion that she was unfaithful, and I left her. I gave my life to Christ after that and decided to marry a church lady, thinking she would be much more different and holy. It seems I was stupid. The next day, I contacted my guy to hack her and sent him his check. It took him 3 days, but he finally got back to me with news. My worst nightmares were confirmed. He helped me hack her WhatsApp messages, and I saw my own wife send nudes and raunchy messages to this guy called Benny. Things I never thought my super religious and prayerful wife would have said. Things she got mad at me for saying to her. In one, she would talk about giving him a bit better than his girlfriend could ever. In the second one, she talked about licking his butt and eating any poo that came out of it. I felt disgusted. This was a woman I had kissed passionately and lovingly. I couldn't believe she had put in another man's butt and was so proud of being so dirty. I literally threw up after seeing what I saw. From the timelines of when she started being cagey and sneaky with me, I could calculate that my wife had been seeing Benny for 6 months now. They had gotten so close when he was transferred to a branch at the office. Apparently, he was quite the charming type, and my wife fell head over heels for him. He was funny and charismatic, everything I wasn't. I broke down in tears after what I saw. Nothing could have prepared me for this kind of pain. I decided that it would be best for me to keep it to myself instead of me confronting her about all I had seen. I felt that if I did tell her, I would not be able to craft a good plan to exit this relationship and have my son with me either fully or having full rights to visitations. This woman was crafty enough that I didn't know what she was capable of after finding this out about her. In order to save her name and make herself look like the victim, she would find any way to fight me and keep her son away from seeing me. I could take so many things, but the thought of losing my son totally was too much for me to bear. I decided to stay back for about a year or so to gather as much evidence as possible. It would be so difficult to bring up my evidence as hacked facts from her phone. That, in itself, is a crime. She could sue me, and she would definitely win because the law itself is always on the woman's side and helps her play the victim perfectly. Life was going on smoothly until everything came busting open. A few days later, while we were together, she begins to talk and asks me if everything is okay with me. I asked her why she would ask me. She said she noticed that I've been quiet for a while now. She also noticed that I had not been my usual bubbly self for about a week now. I had not shown interest in the things she used to talk about like I used to, and like a very good husband, I almost exploded why she said that, but I kept my calm. She said my actions are driving her crazy, and if I continue like this, she's going to have to end up divorcing me on her own. She said I'd been avoiding her for a while, and she just kept complaining and complaining. I wondered what she meant by all those things she was saying. Was she trying to gaslight me, like she'll always talk for years now? Usually, when she said all this to me, I would apologize and try to be the dutiful husband she wants. I just noticed that this woman never really cared about what I was going through. She never really asked me why I felt and looked gloomy to know if she needed to fix any issues I was going to. She looked at me and just kept on talking. She said that for a long time now, I had not met her needs as a wife. She spoke about how she was stressed with work and taking care of a newborn baby while I just went about being a man and being selfish. I could not take it anymore. I lashed out at her angrily. "How dare you?" I said. "How dare you accuse me of all those things when you were the one who was cheating on me?" She looked at me like she had seen a ghost. I bet she could not believe the things I just said. She tried to brush it off and double down on accusing me of being unavailable and not caring for her needs as a wife and mother, as if my accusations would go away. I told her to shut the heck up, that her attempts to gaslight me were over. I told her that the wool over my eyes was torn open, and now I can see her for who she truly was. It was at that moment she knew that she couldn't hide the truth from me anymore. She did not say anything, though. She just stood there and was looking at me. I told her that I knew about Benny. I saw all their text messages, all the nude videos, and photos she sent to him, and how she told him she would eat his butt when next they were alone. I told her I saw the message of him calling me a boring and prudish husband and how she laughed in agreements. She even lied to Benny that I had a tiny wiener to make Benny feel important. I don't have a tiny D, and it is a bit on the average side, and yes, I sure know how to use it well. I told her she was horrible and terrible to have done this to me, despite the fact that I told her about my ex who cheated. She had a grin on her face when I told her my ex cheated, then she burst out laughing. I asked why she was laughing. She said if I thought I was good in bed, as I said I was, why have 2 women I have dated and married cheated on me consecutively? She laughed again. She said I over-exaggerated my capabilities in bed, and I'm not that good. I almost hit her in her face, but restrained myself, thank God. I called her a form tool, a degenerate who would have been better on the streets selling Essex than giving it out freely to worthless men. She came close to me and slapped me. How dare you call me a dash, she said. You are a sexist pig, and said she was never satisfied with me. When I was on top, she always looked at the clock, wondering when I was going to finish. She laughed again. She told me how back in college, she had better sex. She had better sex with both black and white guys with bigger DS. I was so deflated and humiliated I couldn't say anything after that. She went into our house and started to pack a few things for herself and the baby. Even though she could literally kick me out, for some reason, she chose to leave by herself. She took our kid and left me in that big empty house. I thought of ending my life, but the thought of my son made me snap back out of it. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, which was divorce papers. Apparently, she had beat me to it. Her lawyer served me the divorce papers, and I went on to contact her parents. Her mom picked up the call. I asked her if her daughter was over at their place, and she answered that my wife had been with them ever since she left my house. She said I was a bad husband. According to her mom, I was the worst husband ever, and she regrets letting her daughter marry me. She said I neglected my family and refused to come see them, even though they had been missing for days now. What if they had gotten into the hands of the wrong people, kidnapped, raped, murdered, etc.? Is that how you would have just been chill and relaxed? I kept my cool till she finished her rants. I calmly said, "Ma'am, didn't your daughter tell you what she did that made her leave this house?" "What?" she asked. I told her everything, and then I discovered her daughter was not only seeing another man, but bedding him. How she put my life and that of my kid in danger by engaging in deplorable sexual acts like eating his butt. When I was done, I expected her mother to take my side. From the other side of the phone, she screamed, "So what if my daughter decided to step out a little because she was expecting a bit of a struggle in her home? It is your job as her husband to forgive her as Jesus Christ forgave us and forgives the church." I asked her why she would tell me that sort of a thing. She replied, "If you were the one who cheated, we would have counseled our daughter never to leave for marriage." My mother-in-law said all this while feeling. I asked her why she didn't counsel her promiscuous child to return home, and she replied, "Why would I? You verbally abuse her and make her feel small. That marriage is as good as dead." She hung up the phone before I could even respond. I just accepted my fate that my family had been torn apart. Now, we have been going on with the divorce proceedings for months. As days turned into weeks, I caught up with an old friend and very close acquaintance. I told him about my wife cheating on me. He knew my wife well. In fact, he was at our wedding and met my wife's parents. He said he knew my wife's mother years back. He had met people who were related to her, and he had been briefed on the fact that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Apparently, my mother-in-law had been married to some guy way before my wife was born. She was caught cheating on him by the guy she was sleeping with, one of her ex-husband's close friends. She never apologized to her ex-husband, but he was smart enough to file for divorce. A few months later, these same relatives say they saw her heavily pregnant, and by the time she put to bed, the baby looked just like her husband's friend whom she had slept with. The ex-husband had blonde hair and blue eyes, just like my friend told me. My mother-in-law then joins the church and becomes a born-again Christian. She meets a new guy and tells him the child belonged to her ex-husband rather than the true father, her ex-husband's best friend. Everyone in her family knows she cheated on her ex-husband, and the baby girl who later becomes my wife, Amy, looks nothing like my mother-in-law's ex-husband, but no one will dare utter a word because everyone is afraid to become confrontational with my mother-in-law because they snitched. As the divorce proceedings continue, my lawyer assured me that the law will be on my side, and since she chose to move out without any form of abuse from me whatsoever, I definitely stand a very good chance of sharing joint or full custody with her for my son. I was ecstatic at the news. My son was all that was important to me right now. I'm trying to move on now and heal my broken heart. I hear my wife started openly dating her love of the very week she broke up with me. If anyone asked her, she would shove it in their faces how she has finally been set free from that clutch called marriage. Now it's been about 6 months, and I heard she caught the guy cheating on her with some hot new girl from the office. I heard she dumped him right there and then, as her lover Benny told her he wasn't ready to raise another man's kids or be with a single mother. I guess I got the last laugh after all. Story number 3. My wife and I have been married for 8 years and have 2 sons. About 3 years ago, before our second son was born, we used to attend a Christian church where we loved the pastors. They were always there for us like their own kids, which is why we moved so far to attend their church. At my new job, I was getting stressed out a lot because I never had a full staff and was always working. When I would come home, my wife would ask me if I was going to church. Being so tired, I would tell her no. Just to remind you, they had church 4 times a week, and at this point, I was only going on Sundays. We started arguing a lot because she said that I wasn't showing her enough love, never paid attention to her, and never wanted to go to church with her. I kinda get it, but at the same time, I don't because we would always go to the mall or do something else. I started noticing she was texting on her phone all night, and when I asked who she was talking to, she would tell me her best friend from church. This was fine by me because we hung out with them a lot. They were another young couple from church, and the husband was the pastor's nephew. We all played in the church band together and hung out a lot. My best friend was Daniel. Months went by, and one day my wife was crying in the bathroom. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she was pregnant. The last time she found out she was pregnant, she made a big deal and was so happy. This time, she was crying. I told her I was excited about our new baby, hoping it was a girl, but she just kept crying. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me she had a confession to make. My heart sank into my stomach. She told me she didn't know if the baby was mine or my best friend's. I immediately knew it wasn't mine because she always forced me to use protection. When she told me they had been having sex, each time was without a condom because he said to her he couldn't have kids. She wanted an abortion, so I drove her to get one. After that, we had sex without protection, and she immediately got pregnant again. This time, our second son was born. I would have left her, but at that time, my grandpa who lived with me had passed away, and I didn't want to be alone. Now fast forward to now, it haunts me every day, and what's worse is I feel like she is at it again. She went back to church, but not the same one, and now she comes home at crazy times. She leaves me with the kids one day and takes them the next. I don't know what to do. I don't love her, but I don't want my kids to suffer because they really love her. However, she doesn't take care of them, and of course, they love me too, but they prefer their mom. I don't know what to do. It sounds like you're going through a difficult time. It's important to prioritize your children's well-being and safety. Have you considered seeking counseling or therapy to work through your feelings and figure out what steps to take next? It may also be helpful to speak with a lawyer to understand your rights and options in terms of custody and divorce. Remember, you deserve to be in a healthy and respectful relationship. It's important to take care of yourself and your children during this challenging time. Now, story number 4. My name is Carlos and I have been married to my wife Melly for 6 years now. She's a good wife and a great mother to our 4-year-old, or at least that's what I thought. Our sex life has always been off and on. Sometimes we would have sex 3 to 4 times a week and sometimes 0 times a week. But then last month on a Sunday night, which is my only day off, I tried to have sex with her and she said she didn't want to because she was tired and sore from the gym. She kept denying me for the next 3 weeks, and we had no sex at all in almost a month. I also noticed that she was always on her iPhone and was doing mandatory overtime every Wednesday and Thursday. So, 2 Wednesdays ago, I called her job, a pediatrician clinic, and was told she had left work almost 2 hours ago, 6 p.m. So, I texted her and asked her how work was, and she texted me back saying it's really busy, be home around 10 p.m. It killed me to know that she was lying, and God only knew where she really was. When she finally got home, she said she had gone to the gym and wanted to shower right away. I acted like everything was fine, but in reality, I wanted to ask her where the hell she went after work. So, I thought of a plan. I went to Metro PCS the next day and got a cheap phone with the $35 plan. My plan was to use the phone as a GPS to see where she was going after work. So, I downloaded Famalanet on both phones, and now the cheap Metro PCS phone was a tracking device. Wednesday came again, and before my wife left for work, I ran into her car and located the phone under the baby's car seat. She then left for work, and about 20 minutes later, I checked my iPhone, and the tracker showed that she was at work. So far, everything was normal. It was now 6 p.m., and my heart was beating really hard to find out where she was going to go and to do what. So, at 6:20 p.m., I checked again, and she was somewhere in the back of our town's Walmart. So, I got in my car and headed to Walmart. When I got there, I went around the parking lot a few times to see if maybe she was doing some shopping but didn't see her car. The GPS was still showing that she was behind Walmart, about half a mile into the woods. I drove to the back of Walmart, and there were 2 ditch roads that led somewhere into the woods. So, I picked one of them and drove slowly for about less than a minute, then decided to park my car in the ditch and walk for about 5 minutes until I saw her red Honda parked behind 2 trees. I walked slowly and quietly, and as I got close to the car, I noticed a lot of movement. Then, I saw a man's but through the back window of the car. As I got closer to the car, I could hear everything they were saying. I could hear her moaning, saying things like, "Yes, that feels so good, my ass is only yours, you can come inside my ass, baby, she never let me have anal sex." My stomach started to hurt, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing or seeing. I closed my eyes and started to walk back to my car, but then I said to myself, "No, this can't be happening," and went back to her car and started knocking on her side window. They both stopped, and then she said, "Carlos, what the fuck? Why are you here? Oh my God, what the fuck?" She got in front of her car, looking for her keys, I guess, and the guy got out of the car and started to put his boxers back on. I noticed that he wasn't even using a condom, and there was this horrible shit smell coming out of her car. The guy, a tall black Hispanic man, got in the passenger seat of her car, she turned her car on, and they left. I was just standing there for almost an hour, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then, I got a call from my mom asking me what time I was picking up Jason, our son. I ran to my car, and when I got to my mom's, I told her that I got in an argument with Millie, my wife, and if I could spend the night at her house. Around 10 p.m., my wife texted me, asking how our son was doing and that she was really sorry. She said that it was a mistake, that the guy doesn't mean anything to her, and that it was just sex. But I can't get the image of her or the words of the things she was saying when she was having sex out of my head. I have been staying at my mom's for 4 days now and have only seen her twice since I caught her having sex. She texts me all the time, saying she's really sorry, to forgive her, and that we should move away and that everything will be different. I don't know what to do. I do miss her, but it's just hard to forget. This really sucks. Guys, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate that you have devoted your time to my work, specifically on this channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be happy. But if you decide to talk to me in the comments about this story, I will be even happier. Stay tuned for my next story on this channel.